Oh, not till 1 o'clock. Okay.
Report to take a DNA test. If so, call us toll free at 855-DNA23. That's toll free 855-88.
detectives returned to Willis 2 weeks later to question Stephen Champagne for the second time.
They informed Champagne that Patrick couldn't confront his alibi. Still, Champagne was named as
See.
I laughed at her because she's not wrong. Shh.
The baby is adorable.
Governor, you're a prince. We don't have princes in America. Right. By the way, we do have princes that are defending these guys pro bono. I believe, I may be wrong in that, but I believe I saw a lawyer that was defending pro bono. Judge, great to see you. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. While investors are bracing for the busiest week of second quarter earnings, Bob Dahl on what?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in a couple of minutes, but I do suggest going ahead and having the presentation pulled up in your web browser so that it's easier for you guys to click links and stuff later on in the presentation.
Hi.
So that's what it's a bummer is he can't even handle me talking to him.
No, what he should be doing, you should be saying things to him on the order, Bruce, you should be happy that in the event something does happen to you,
Yeah, he just doesn't want anybody
someone will be able to be here
to help him.
to help.
Yeah, I know that, but Bruce, you don't realize his mind's not working.
It's not, his mind's not working that way.
No, his mind is not working, period. And he is.
Yeah, it's sweet pea.
Oh, you started?
Yeah, we're waiting for it to start here. We still got just a minute or two.
Yes, 3 more.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, his mind is not working, but he does recognize jealousy. that part of his mind still works.
Just about one more minute. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you guys for being here. My name's Hannah Jimenez, and this is Digital Assessments and Virtual Learning. My co-moderator is Ashley Hood. We are both digital learning specialists in in Lenoir County. I'm at Rochelle Middle School in Lenoir County, and Ashley is at Banks Elementary School. And in the presentation, we have our contact. The purposes of a co-moderator is Ashley's really going to be focusing on helping with any technical difficulties, answering questions that might happen in the chat, just so that I can kind of make sure that I'm focused on the presentation as a whole. And that way, hopefully everything will move a lot more smoothly throughout, instead of trying to jump back and forth between all the thousands of different screens that, we'll have pulled up. But hi, Ashley, say hi. Hi. And we'll get started. Something else that I want to clarify, kind of the ways that we'll communicate today. If you have any questions or any technical difficulties, definitely go ahead and put those in the chat so that we can start taking care of them at any time. Throughout the presentation, it would be really beneficial if you had that Padlet pulled up. So if you want to go ahead and have it opened up, after each tool that we go over and we look at from a student perspective and then the teacher perspective, I'm going to give you like 2 minutes to reflect on how either you might use it, or you might see your students use it in the classroom, maybe something that you didn't know it did and you want to remember. That Padlet will stay up throughout today as well as the next couple months, because I know that this is like a time when you're probably getting inundated with information, trying to prepare for this unique year. And so you want to be able to come back and reflect on things later. And so that's always going to be available for you. And then another way we can continue the conversation is on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, I definitely suggest getting on Twitter. It's a teacher community, and it's a way that a lot of us share with each other different things that we're doing. And it's a way for us not to think that we're always by ourselves. It's a true wonderful community. I've met many wonderful people, teachers in the state, in the country, across the world. And I don't know what I would do without Twitter, honestly. There are some great hashtags for you to follow. There's the hashtag for this summit, as well as NC Learns Together, which was created when we first went remote back in March. And there are lots of wonderful resources there. Yeah. And just something I like to do before I start a PD session is just kind of knowing where we are. This is a new time for all of us, and I understand that, and I want us all to understand that. And it's just something that we have to do with our kids too, because we're not seeing each other face to face. It's really easy for us to just put on this facade that everything is always all right, and we just know that it's not. And so this is just a good way to check in and make sure that we're all taking care of each other socially and emotionally. This is just an example. I made this really quick. There are plenty of ways to do it, but I just kind of wanted to show you that this is kind of another type of assessment that we would want to do with our students before we start, our lessons or anything like that, just knowing where everybody is. But so you can go ahead and put your number in the chat, or if you don't want to share, that's perfectly fine. I totally understand. Before we jump right in, I see that there are lots of things going on in the chat. Is there anything for me to know, Ash? All right, perfect. So right before we get into all of our different formative assessment tools. I think the question that we need to keep in mind as we move forward is how will students engage? Because a lot of the tools that I'm going to share, you've probably at least heard of once or twice before, but we have to think about how to recreate those in the virtual learning environment. And knowing how they engage with that tool is knowing it's not going to be the same as if we were all in the same room together. So what does that look like? And we can't just assume that because kids were born into this, tech century, that they're automatically going to be able to figure it out, because many of them won't, or can't, or just need someone to come alongside step by step and kind of walk them through it. So what I would suggest is once we get done with all of these and you find the one that maybe speaks most to you, is that you practice with your students before you ever really give it to them as any type of assessment, because you want them to feel comfortable with it. But with all of that being said, we are going to jump into our digital formative assessments. And so these are the ones that I'm going to specifically focus on today. I've kind of chosen them for different reasons. We've got our video, we've got formative is when I focus specifically with math. Quizzes is just my favorite. And we'll talk about why that's my favorite. Google Forms because Google is universal. And Kahoot because I love Kahoot, and I think we often dismiss Kahoot before we really see all that it has to handle, or all that it can handle. So with that being said.
Hey, Hannah, there's a lot of 4s in the chat, a lot of 4s.
Oh, that's great. I'm really happy that there are a lot of 4s.
And a couple 2s, a couple 5s, so.
That's great. I'm glad we're all taking care of ourselves and really preparing for this year. I'm glad that we were given a little bit more time to plan than, the 2 days that we had back in March. So hopefully this will be really beneficial. So Kahoot, it really is so much more than it used to be. And I don't want us as teachers to just automatically dismiss it because it's been around for a while. It provides great feedback that you can save directly to your Google Drive. Kids really do enjoy it, and they enjoy it, one, because it can be used as like a group class activity. But the way we're really going to focus on it today is this bullet at the bottom where it can be assigned and scheduled over a period of time. So really trying to remember that this virtual learning has to be done like synchronously and asynchronously, because not all of our students are going to have access all at the same time. Another really great thing I love about Kahoot is that you can make your own content, but in a time like this when we're all kind of stressed, like there is also lots of pre-made content that we can look through, and we can sort through and filter through and find what fits for us, and then maybe make a few edits, so that we're not spending 45 minutes making something, but maybe we're spending 10 minutes editing something someone else already made. So kind of with that being said, we're going to dive into it. But first I want us to take it as a student. So there's a code for you to join a Kahoot like you normally would, kahoot.it, and a code. And then there's also a link if you want to click on that. Now this is set up as a challenge, which means like I'm not going to show you anything on my screen. This is just kind of like I've assigned it as an assignment for anyone that has this code. And then we'll look at the data in just a second. But if you would go ahead and get started with that, and then I will work on pulling up the teacher side.
What's the name of Jasmine's pet tiger in Aladdin? I got it right, I guess.
If this is going to be Kahoot, I'm not doing this. You got it wrong. No, it's supposed to be digital assessment. That's not what it is, a digital assessment. It's a game.
Where does Mufasa and his family live? You said Africa.
Oops, turn your speakers back on.
All right, I'll give you guys about another minute to finish up, and then we'll start digging in. Man. All right, so I think we probably have had enough time to at least experience it as a student. As you can see, this is a little different than the Kahoots that we used to see, where it was like everyone was in the class, the teacher reflected the question, and all they had to do was tap on the screen. Now everything is kind of built in, and I don't know if you guys knew that, or if you, and maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but I just wanted to make sure we were aware that Kahoot really has expanded what they're able to do. So the way they call it is challenges. So I made the challenge of this Disney trivia. And so then it tells me like how many, what the difficult questions were. And because people are still doing it, I can't download my report yet. But for some of you that maybe are, I am gonna end it now. So I ended it. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up here to my 3 dots. And now I like all this report stuff down here. It's great, but what I really like is I like spreadsheets and things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and download my report. I can save it to my Google Drive, which I would do, I'm not gonna do right now, but normally that's what I would do. And I'd go ahead and put it in the correct folder for whatever class I had it. But right now I'm just gonna download it to make it easier to clean up for myself later. And I just want you to see what the data looks like because it is more, I think, than we initially expect Kahoot to give us. And obviously this is just Disney trivia. Like I didn't do any like hardcore intense math or science or anything like that. But this is what the data would look like that you would get. We have when it was taken, how many players, I have my % correct, my incorrect, and just kind of the general overview, but then it breaks it down by question, by student and player.
Hannah,
Yes.
we cannot see the spreadsheet. We're still looking at Kahoot.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Give me just a second.
And also there was a question in the chat that says, do you recommend telling students use their name and not nicknames to track data better?
Yes, so that is an expectation that honestly anything that I talk about today, I would definitely create some sort of expectation around what the naming convention should be. So a lot of my teachers will say it has to be their first name and then they can put like one emoji so that they do have like some sort of creative outlet, but that we can still track using their name. So my apologies for that. Okay.
What, darling? I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing here.
Where's my computer?
Can we see the spreadsheet now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is what I was talking about, kind of the general overview. It tells us how many players, % correct overall. But then if we go to where it says like quiz 1, quiz 2, it breaks it down by player, tells us like if they got it right, tells us how many points. We can sort it by points, knowing I have it set up by, you know, time. So whoever answered it the quickest got the most points. We can quickly see like who it took a little longer and sort it that way. So yeah, that is, and normally I would go ahead and save that to Google Drive and have it all there in a folder for later use. But I just wanted to show you what it looked like instead of going more in depth like that. So now let me go back to my Kahoot. Okay, so now we're back in Kahoot. Now I'm gonna show you how to make it a challenge instead of like a normal Kahoot that we would normally have done in class. So now when you go to Kahoot and you see all either the Kahoots you have or you've already went and found one that you like, come on. All right, I'm gonna click on the Kahoot that I want. And then I'm gonna click play. And this is where it gives us the two options. I can either teach, and so this is where like my screen would have all the answers and or have the question and only the students' devices would have the answer choices. But for like what we just did would be if we clicked assign. And so I'm gonna click assign, and that's where it's gonna give us the different settings that we can set up. So do we want to have a timer, randomized, how long until it has to be completed, and then create. So very simple. I really like how simple Kahoot really has made it. Some of the other ones are a little bit more complex, but I really like the way Kahoot does it. Any questions before we move on from Kahoot? All right, so then, like I said before, we're just gonna take a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, to go to that Padlet and add any thoughts, ideas, or applications that every person has about how they might use Kahoot, how you see students using Kahoot, if you learn something new, or anything like that. So I'll start the timer for 2 minutes. This is it.
And Hannah, everything you're showing here is free, right?
Yes, everything that you'll see today is free.
And Hannah, do you know if Kahoot jumbles the order of the answers within the questions?
So yes, when you go to that assign set page that we were just on, it gives you the option to randomize questions and answers.
And do you find pictures in the app, or do you have to find them yourself?
Pictures?
Yeah. For the questions.
I'm gonna be really honest. The only ones I've ever created, I didn't use any pictures. Most of the ones that I use within Kahoot, I take what someone's already done and kind of edit it a little bit. So I actually am not quite certain of the exact correct answer to that question. But quizzes later on, the pictures are in the app or in the website. Okay, about 30 more seconds. All right, now we're gonna move on to Google Forms. Once again, yes, I think you're on mute, Ash.
Yeah, I am. Before we go, there's a burning question.
Okay.
How do you change your pointer?
Oh, okay. It's a Google Chrome extension called Creative Cursor. And it gives you lots of, actually, let me just go show you real quick. That's a great question. Okay, so if you see my extension right here, it's called Custom Cursor for Chrome, and you can click there, and I have all of these options to choose from. So it just helps catch people's eyes, especially if I'm like, you know, you're looking at a screen and you're probably looking at pictures of people's faces too. It just helps kind of keep everyone's attention where I'm talking. But great question. I'll actually talk about that tomorrow in my session.
There you go. Come back for more.
All right, so I'm not even gonna make this big again because that would be confusing. Okay, so Google Forms. It's not just surveys, even though I know that you probably get about 57, 75, 100 surveys every year from administration, central office, on a Google form. I promise you it does way more than that. And you probably know it does quizzes, it does grading, it does all of that. But what I'm specifically gonna focus on today is sections. And so what I'm going to do first, unlike what we did with Kahoot, where we played it and then we talked about it, I'm actually going to talk about it first and then let you see what it does, because I think it helps you understand like how it flows. So basically with Google Forms sections, you can have students go to different sections of a Google form based on how they answer. And so it kind of can create this like massive tree so that if they get the first question wrong, then they go to a review section. If they get that right, then they finally get to advance to the next section. And it can get really long and massive. I'm keeping it really simple just to show you what Google Forms can do, because I'm not sure if everyone knows that Google Form can do sections. And I think it is really beneficial because it kind of keeps all that learning in one place. So you open your Google form. Obviously mine's kind of already created because I didn't want to walk through like all of the steps, but I do want to show you once you have that first like title and description, if you go to your three dots, and then this last option is add section. And so that's where you'll create your new section. So I'm just going to title it test for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a question within this section. I'm going to make it multiple choice. I'm going to say, what is my dog's name? And then I'm going to put some options. All right. And so what I can do is I can go down here and I can select the option, go to section based on answer. And so when I click on that, what happens is beside each answer choice, I'm given some options. So the correct answer for what is my dog's name is Barney. So that is the one where it's just going to continue to the next section. They did great. You got it right. You get to move on. But for the other ones, as you can see on my later ones, I have like review section set up. This is where I would send them to the review section. And I know that kind of sounds confusing. So what I would do, how I format this in my head is I go ahead and create all the sections I think I'm going to need. So I have a question and then I have my review section, another question and review section, question, review section. And I go ahead and create all of those. And so when I go back and I actually put my questions in, that's when I can say, okay, correct answer gets to move to the next section, but my incorrect answers are the ones that'll have to go to my review. So what that looks like in better detail, go ahead and trash this, is, okay, so I've got my colors question. I'm in my colors section and I've got my colors question and I have what colors make orange. And you can see I have my correct answer gets to move on to the next section, but my incorrect answers have to go to my review section, which is the next section. which has like a little review video, and then it has another question to kind of like trigger what the understanding of the colors is. And then when they get that right, that's when they can move on to the next section. They move on to the next section. Once again, correct answers, incorrect answers. Because I don't have another section, the correct answer for this question is just going to be a submission of the form. And my incorrect answers are going to be what takes me to the review. Once again, another video for review. And then a question, which all of these, whether they get it correct, incorrect, is just going to be an automatic submission of the form.
There's a couple questions in the chat.
Okay.
It was mentioned that there were some counties that are Microsoft, and that Microsoft has forms and it functions similarly to Google Forms. Also, a question about linking to a review resource like a website. I know you can embed video, but linking to a website, if they get the question wrong, and is this being recorded in-house somewhere so we can view it later?
Yes. Okay. So yes, I've never used Microsoft Forms, but I have heard from many people that do use it that it is very similar. So I would assume it has many of the same functions. Linking to a website, yes, it just within the section, like where I put a video, I would just put a link to wherever I want them to go to review. They review and then they come back to the form. And then for recording purposes, yes, I am recording. And on that Padlet, I'm going to upload a link to the video, as well as I'm pretty sure the SeaSummit as a whole is going to compile all of our recordings and send it out to everyone that attended. But for you, just to make sure everyone that attends this session on that Padlet, I will make sure that there is a link added for a video for you guys to see later. Does that answer all of our questions thus far?
There's a question about sectioning. Do they see the sections or do they appear as they answer the questions?
So they appear as you answer the questions, which is a great question because now you guys are actually going to go see that exact one in action. So if you go to the link in the presentation, complete the Google form, you should be able to click there and complete the Google form that you just saw, so you know what the correct answers are. But you might want to answer one incorrectly just so you can see what it looks like to go to the review section. And I'll probably give you like 2 minutes.
The form says they need permission. No. Also, somebody else was saying they didn't see the 3 dots on the question, so I was.
So on the question, the 3 dots are at the bottom. On the sections, the 3 dots are at the top. Probably because. Let's see if that works.
Did you put that in the chat?
Yes, I put it in the chat. See if that works for everybody. I apologize for that.
I'll fix that on your presentation.
Yep.
Not that.
It didn't work again?
Still doesn't work.
All right, Ash, why would it not work?
All right, I didn't see what you did, so.
I went to my link.
Right, you gotta set, there's some setting you gotta do first though.
Yep, right there.
Yep. It's a little bit of delay what you're doing, so you already had seen it before I could even see it.
Okay, let's try this again. A great example of technical difficulties for everybody. It happens all of the time.
That's right. Everybody's figuring this out as we go, so don't worry about it.
Now let's see if that works. Yes, learning opportunity for everybody.
All day long. Hey,
Yes.
can you share how to do that permission thing one more time, a little slower? Because you are like a little bit ahead of
Faster. Okay, sure. So what I did was I went up here to the top and I went to the gear. I clicked on the gear. And so originally it had this one checked, restrict to users in Lenoir County Public Schools. I unchecked that so that you guys, everyone, no matter where you are, could access the link. Once I unchecked it, I pressed save. and then I went back to that send button and got the link.
Always shortened.
And I always, yes, always shorten the link.
I don't know why it just doesn't always shorten.
It doesn't make any sense. All right, so for those of you that have, you know, kind of started responding, I see I've got 19 responses. Are you seeing how the sections work as like you only see one thing at a time, and then once you answer, so nobody really knows unless they're like, especially because we're in a virtual learning environment, nobody knows what anyone else in their class is getting to see. Like they don't know if they've answered it correctly or incorrectly. They're not knowing if they're the only one that got the review question or if everyone in the class missed it and got the review question. So, I mean, that's just something personally that I really love. It's probably my favorite feature of Google Forms. And
Hannah,
then
could you also do just one, like start something from scratch on Google Forms, because we're still not being able to see the dots.
okay, yep.
Make sure that everybody understands how to start.
Let me go out of, let me just go back to my presentation. Actually, let me pull up my Google Drive. All right, so in your Google Drive, to start a form, I go up to my waffle. That's what I call that group of 9 dots. I call it the waffle. I click on my waffle. Sorry, I got to move all of our faces. And then I scroll down until I find forms.
And you can also do it over there on new on the left-hand side.
Yes, you can.
I'm pointing with my pointer like you can see that.
We click on forms. My computer is working hard. And then I know Google has all of these wonderful templates for us, but personally for me, I always start blank. I think it just gives me more creativity, more ability to make it whatever I need it to be for whatever I'm doing. So here I've got my sections. I've got my first section already, so I'm just going to title it. All right, and so when I get to my question, you've got your 3 dots down here at the bottom. Are we seeing those now, or are we still not seeing
now,
those?
how do you add a section?
Okay, if we add a section, I'm going to go back up to my first section, and I'm going to click these 2 bars over here on the side. So if I click that, it adds another section.
And if you start with a template, can you modify it? Have you ever done that?
Yes, you can modify all their templates. I just personally always start blank. And that's just a personal preference. But any of the templates are completely modifiable.
Great.
All right, perfect. So just like we did at the end of Kahoot, we are going to go to the Padlet and just add any of our thoughts, ideas, or applications that you might use in the classroom. So I'm going to.
Are you going to show about like how you see the?
Oh, the data. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a slide. Yep. All right. So, okay. So 2
I
ways you can.
off, I'm sorry.
Sorry, what?
I threw you off having to start
It's
already.
okay. 2 ways you can see the data. There is the way that's built in directly into Google Forms, which is it breaks it down. You get a summary of all your questions. You get to see how people responded. It also shows you like a very quick glance of your class. Like 45 people took this first question, but only 17 people went to the review. So I know, okay, what that looks like. I've got my month's question and then how many people went to the review there. I can also look at it based by question. So I click on my question, I can see what all the different responses are. Personally, don't really like that view. I don't really understand that view. I stick between summary and individual if I'm looking at data within Google Forms. So if I go to individual, and this is where I know my automatic setting is to have it collect Lenoir County, because normally it would tell me like who it was that submitted the form. So because I didn't have a name section at the top of this Google form, like I don't actually know who did what where. So that wasn't super beneficial for me. But if I had done this where it was collecting Lenoir County for my students, then I would have seen like their email address right here at the top. And I would have been able to know exactly how that student answered. And then I'd be able to quickly move through all of their answers.
Or alternatively, you could just ask the name.
Yeah. So whichever one you prefer.
So that way you can see what they got wrong.
Yes. You can also take any Google form and you can create a spreadsheet of their answers. So just to show what that looks like really quickly.
I like this view.
Yeah, spreadsheets are my personal preference. And so it's a little more, I don't know, condensed, concise for me. And normally this column B would be like name or who responded, tells you when they did it, and then tells you their answer choices. Personally, that is what this is the view that I choose when I'm looking at data from Google Forms. No matter what it is, if it's a survey, exit ticket, if it's something that I did in sections, if it's just a regular like file upload test, anything, I use this view.
Then you can sort it, or you could color code the cells, or however it works for you.
Yeah, you can do conditional formatting, all that fun stuff, make things highlight colors. So sheets, yes. Any other questions about Google Forms?
There's a timestamp on the left-hand side. So
yep. And actually, I don't know if I should say. Never mind. All right. So now we're going to take those 2 minutes and go to that Padlet that I had you open up earlier on and add your thoughts, ideas, and applications. And I'll give you guys about 2 minutes to do that.
Hannah, could I ask a question really quick?
Of course.
Is it in the very, very beginning when you're setting up the test that you choose whether or not you're going to put in the names?
Yes. So here, let me.
I'm so sorry that.
No, you're good. That's a great question. So I'll go over to this one that I kind of was starting to mess around with. This is where like under that first section, probably the only question I would have in the first section if I was going to do sections would be the name. Oh, it's not going to let me. Yeah, so I would just put name and then make it short answer for them to type in their name. And then I would make it a required question. I would really make everything a required question normally, but this is where we would collect their name.
Thank you. That's perfect. If you did it, I missed it, so thank you.
No, yeah, no problem.
Also, Alicia had a great pointer that sharing directly to students with an email group versus sending them a link will show how many students haven't completed it yet. And I use that sometimes when I'm trying to get feedback from staff.
Mm-hmm.
Then it shows you who hasn't responded yet. So
that's good. I don't know if I knew that, so that's great.
And where do you do that? You just add another section?
No, so
when you share it.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Yeah, so it's super easy. So all you do is click on the settings gear. Or actually, no, take that back. It's sending. Sorry, I got distracted.
You're good.
Scratch that. So you go to send. And then if you do email, like mine, when I get my class roster, I have all of my student emails in PowerSchool. So I would just copy and paste to email to them. And then once you send it to them, when you go to your question view, it will show you who hasn't answered yet. And it gives you an option to email them to follow up. And that was one thing I did a lot in March when I had kids that just did not log in, because I teach Math 1 and Math 2 at West Carteret. So a lot of those kids just didn't touch their computers after March at all. But whenever I sent out a form to everybody, I would continue, like I would send them email reminders to follow up those first few days until I realized down to those 12 that never responded, just knowing that they weren't going to, pretty much. So that was one of my easiest ways to kind of figure out who was engaged and who wasn't.
Thank
I
you.
love that. Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going with this, was accountability. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that actually works for all Google things. So if you're doing Google Docs, Google Slides, anything, I would definitely recommend sending it as an email versus sharing a link.
That's great, because it also has all that data. It shows the date you send it, and then it shows you the date that you sent the follow-up email. That's all that great data for when people start saying, but I didn't see it.
And it's a little different in Google Docs and like the slides, because when you look at the sharing information, it shows you when they looked at it last. So I would share my agendas for the week, and then I could go in and see, oh, well, you haven't looked at the agenda since Monday and it's Thursday. So that's why you didn't do your Wednesday assignment, because you don't know what it is.
I love
so,
that.
Yeah, it's great with the Google Docs and slides.
Also, there's a question about using the include form in the email at the bottom.
So basically, I mean,
it's just a matter of beauty, I think.
Yeah. So if you've probably received a Google form like that where it kind of has it built into the email, but as soon as you answer that first question, it's going to like open up in a new tab. I typically don't check that box because they're going to have to open up in a new tab anyway. But that's just, once again, a personal preference. All right. I think we probably all had some time to get onto the Padlet. So we are going to move on. And we're going to move on to quizzes. Quizzes is absolutely my favorite digital assessment. It's also, to me, the most versatile. It has individual assessments. It does a lot like Kahoot, where it does the scheduling, but it also can kind of make it, if you were using it in a whole class environment, you could also have it where it's like a competition between the students. They can race against time and other students, but that is optional. That's all stuff you can turn off as well. Students can work at their own pace. If you turn off that time, it gives those same detailed data and quiz reports. And like Kahoot, it can be assigned and scheduled over that specific time. And then it also has the fun pictures and memes, which kind of just make, for me, like, I'm not a great test taker. And so sometimes I need that like fun, like 30 seconds of something that breaks up the questions, because I can get super anxious if I think I've answered, 3 wrong in a row or whatever. And I need that mental break between questions. So trying to think like the kids would. So like we did with Kahoot, we're just going to do an example first, and then we're going to dig into the actual website. So there is the code for this one, and you go to join.quizzes.com. And we'll put that in the chat as well.
Can we start?
Yes, go ahead and start.
Oh.
Sorry. I did not clearly define my expectations.
Trying to follow the rules here. Okay.
Kayla, you didn't tell us the right answers.
I didn't tell you the right answer? Oh, yeah, no.
That was cute, though.
I know, I was muted. Is there a bit.ly for attendance?
Yes, it's at the end of the presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so similarly to Kahoot, I see most of us are about finished up. You can finish or you can choose not to, whichever you prefer. But it kind of shows me my breakdown of like how people did within the website in the same way that Kahoot did. It also gives me those same options where if I go to the top, I can download the reports. It is still active. I have my deadline set for tomorrow at 10:15 for some reason. I can also, instead of breaking it down by players, I can break it down by question, and I can see like what questions I automatically need to review, which all shows up in the download. I actually personally like, unlike Kahoot, I like quizzes like in system, like breakdown a lot more. But I also really do like their download too. I also like this grid view. I like visuals, which is why I like the download is as well a spreadsheet, which once again, it's going to open up in a Excel, which you're not going to be able to see unless I stop and share. But hold on, give me just a second. So many things to move around. Okay, so this is the Excel spreadsheet for quizzes. Once again, I mean, it looks similar to the Kahoot breakdown, except for Kahoot had like, you know, a bajillion tabs down at the bottom. This one is just very concise. You can see it at the class level where it breaks down the question and then the student, and then the other tab is just the player level, which is just literally tells you the player, tells you how they did, when they took it, and how they accessed it, which can be interesting if you're wondering how your students are accessing there. If they're using the same device, or maybe they are on Zoom, or if they're using like a phone, you know, giving them those options. But let's go back to this. All right, so much like Kahoot, I'm just gonna go to my library, which is where all of my quizzes are. I'm gonna pick the one that I want to schedule. I'm gonna click on it. In quizzes, you don't have to like actually start it. You just click assign as homework. You give them the date that it should be completed by, the time, if you have classes enrolled, but I think that's a paid option, which everything I'm showing you is free. How many times can they take it? Should they see the answers? Should they see the answers like in the game? Are you going to show them do it after the game? Are you not going to show them the answers at all? Are you going to have a timer turned on? Are they going to be able to see the leaderboard as people are completing it within their class? Shuffling the questions, shuffling the answers. You can allow redemption questions where like the questions come back up again to see if they remembered, if they were just, clicking through as fast as they can and not even paying attention, or if they were actually paying attention and they learned from their incorrect answer. Are they playing music? Are you showing memes? And then memes to choose from. And then once you pick, you press continue.
All right, so we got some questions in chat, Hannah.
Yes.
Well, first of all, we have somebody say that Quizzes also has solo practice link feature, which is great to give ahead of time for students to use. Need to see who studied. I don't know where that is myself.
That is, so right where I went and I clicked assign as homework, the green button is the solo practice button right here.
And then how do you see who did that practice? I guess that's still going to show up.
So you have to share the practice link.
All right. Somebody else asked that Kahoot does points and Quizzes does percent. Can you change Kahoot to percent? I don't know that Kahoot can change.
That I don't know. Let's go look real quick. Edit.
And I just want to say again out loud, if you're not reading the chat, that everything in this presentation is free for educators to use. So actually, this Quizzes and Flipgrid, I'm just amazed, are free.
So it doesn't look like in like the actual edit part of Kahoot that you can change. It's just points.
I did also want to say, Hannah, the classes and quizzes are free. I used classes all last year and I have a free account.
Good.
Easy to use. It works awesome with Google Classroom. So yeah, I just want everybody to know that classes and quizzes are free and super easy. And it's great for if you have high parent engagement, sending those parent emails is super easy as well.
So it does the simple import from Google Classroom?
Yep, it has that as an option, or you can create a class and then share a join link directly.
Perfect.
And I believe you can also input student emails to send them an invitation. So it has those 3 different ways.
And so in Google Forms, you could also put the join link in the form and just go to a separate tab.
Great, awesome, thank you. Any other questions about quizzes?
Do teachers have to be careful about students being upset when their poor scores are on the screen where their classmates can see it?
So that personally, if you're not in an in-class environment, I turn the leaderboard off. That's just, if you're not able to be in the school, in the room with the students, and you haven't set up those expectations and all of that, I find that to me, it's more of a culture deterrent than like a culture builder. Whereas like when you're in the classroom and you can kind of make it that more competitive, like safe atmosphere, then I do have a lot of teachers that do show the leaderboard, but using it this spring in virtual learning, I don't think I had a single teacher ever use the leaderboard, because that wasn't the point of it, you know. The majority, they were just trying to see what the students knew, what they were learning, and then have more targeted like learning opportunities for them. So I personally would not show it. Any other quizzes related questions? Just like with Kahoot, with their Discover tab, you can type in any subject, press enter and search, and it's going to show you many different ones that come up.
Till I get done.
You can then click on, you know, maybe you're studying World War I in 5th grade, or maybe it's 6th to 8th grade. You can click on it, and then you have the ability to save it as one of your own and go in and edit it for yourself. So it's going to create a duplicate for me that's going to save in my library and then allow me to go through and edit it. Do I like a question? Do I want to change a question? Do I want to add a picture, take away a picture, anything like that? Yes. It's not recreate what maybe someone else has already created for us. All right. So if there are no more questions about quizzes, we're going to go back to that Padlet with our thoughts, ideas, and applications, and give you about 2 minutes to think through like how you might use this. Do you see this just as the same tool as Kahoot? Is it different? How might you use it differently? Just kind of brainstorming through those thoughts.
People were already putting in ideas before you even said that.
All right, thank you guys for sharing. We are going to move on to our second to last one, which is formative. This might be one that you haven't heard of. This is one specifically, I would say I want to reach out to my math teachers, because formative and Flipgrid, the next one after this one, are both ones that I specifically put on here for math, because I know math is like that harder one to like find, because you want to think through students processing and things like that. And I think because formative allows students to like work out the problem and like show you all their like thoughts around it. It has quick type answer. It has a quick draw answer. You can even upload like worksheets that you might already have. Because I know math, I would encourage you to branch out from worksheets, but it does allow you to upload worksheets and have like where you can create on the worksheet like a space for them to show their work, or input their answer. And you as the teacher, let me stop moving things around, can easily watch all the students as they answer the problems and offer feedback in real time, which is also another important component of math. When you're seeing the students' thought processing, and before they get to the wrong answer, you can like quickly identify what they may have mistaken and like address it in the moment. So if you haven't used formative before, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. You can go to goformative.com/join and then type in that code. And then Ash is also going to put it in the chat for us. So if you want to take just a second and come back to my screen, you'll be able to see what I mean when you can see the students like working on the different problems. And I know that this, if you don't, so our student in Lower County, we have iPads, so it's a little, this part of it works a little easier maybe because they can use their finger, but I do still think it's a beneficial part, even if you only have a computer and a cursor. It just takes practice, and for students to learn what the expectation is around it. But for example, I can click on one and I can immediately start typing feedback in.
Where'd you go to start that feedback? We can't see.
So I clicked on, can you see my screen?
I do. Okay, now I see it at the bottom. Yeah, I think it's just where my,
sorry.
Yep. It's so near the bottom. But this can be used for any content area, correct?
Yes, it can. This is just kind of the one that I specifically, as a coach in my school, my math teachers really enjoy because of these different functions. But it can be used for anything. It's one of the only ones that has this quick draw feature, which I know is super helpful.
Yeah.
But as some people have discovered, you can also type directly onto it as well, which that's my person because that's what I would be doing. But I can go through, type great job. I'm not actually checking the math, so that could be completely wrong. I just want you to know. But I'm just showing an example of typing feedback.
Can this be used in Microsoft Teams? Do you know that? Anybody know that?
I don't know that.
Anybody got any experience with Microsoft Teams Informative?
I'm sure we could go. Look up if it works.
Because you can link it to Teams, just post the link.
Perfect. Actually, I'm going to be honest. What is Teams? What does Teams like relate to when it comes to Google? Just because I don't use Microsoft at all. And that's helpful for me for when I do this again so that I know how to answer Microsoft questions.
Classroom.
Perfect.
Also, do students have the option to see the correct answers when they're done, or do the teachers have the option to offer?
Yes, you can have it where it sets up, but because I did the quick draw, that's going to be one where I, as a teacher, want to like grade the work individually, so I didn't type an answer in. So like there should have been one, like the true false question should have been an automatic one. Did it not do that? I would have to go in and mess with my settings. Or actually, I will say, the reason it doesn't show you the correct answer is because you guys are considered guest students, because I didn't create classes. When it shows you the correct answers if you're in the class, but because you guys are considered guests, because I couldn't, before you came to the session, put you all in a class, that's why. I will say that is the one thing about this that's a little trickier. There are two options. As you can see, I have a class, and then I have like my guest section. Guest, all they need is the code, but it doesn't tell them when they get the correct answer. You still can do all of the other features, but it doesn't do, for some reason, correct answer, and it doesn't do one other thing. But when you're in the class, it does. It saves all the data and it downloadable data and gives you the correct answer. I cannot tell you for the life of me why that would be a difference. It doesn't make sense to me as an educator level, but for some reason on their side of things, it makes sense to them. Yes.
There's a question about feedback, and I'm assuming that means like manual feedback.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not right, let me know.
So like while some of you were, like I could click on it and say incorrect, or I could click on it and say correct. Is that the type of feedback you're talking about? Like where I can type in the?
I think so.
Okay.
Also, somebody mentioned that they could not go back to previous questions. Is that normal that you can't go back as a student?
That might be because you're a guest.
That might be the other thing.
Yeah, that might be it. I don't know. I don't normally use it in the guest function. Most of my teachers, kind of import their Google Classroom, and then it's simple from there. I actually didn't know it had the guest option until I was planning for this session. So I'm glad it did, because that would have been really crazy.
I would think that would let you go back to questions.
I would think so too. So if it's not, that would be something I would have to look into for sure.
Is it free to create classes if they don't have Google?
Yes. You just go to classes. It is a little more time consuming. It does have a Clever roster sync too, if you have Clever. But you just go in, new class name. What grade is it? Create. Oh, let me. Well, I already did that. Okay. Yeah, and then you have to go in. You can give them the code, they join, or you can type in everything individually. Preference, same as with quizzes, creating their classes. But if you have Google or if you have Clever, it's just a simple sync, which is nice. Any other questions about formative? Like with Kahoot and Kahoot and quizzes, it also has a library where you can go in and you can search for maybe things that are already there. That has plenty of filters. You can filter by grade, subject, standards. Ooh, lots of standards. And then you can preview on the side. But it's a little, I will say, I like formative a lot, but it's not as, to me, like intuitive and user friendly as the other ones we've talked about. But I do think it has a place of benefit, especially in, as I've said, math. But with that being said, we'll take our 2 minutes and we'll go to our Padlet and do our thoughts, ideas, and applications. And if anyone has any thoughts or things that they know when they use formative and want to share, that would be great. Or if you've never used formative. All right, about 30 more seconds. And we'll move on to our last one.
Sorry, I left you for a minute there.
It's okay.
I don't know what happened.
All right, and we'll move on to our last one, which is Flipgrid. And once again, you probably heard about Flipgrid, but I just want to remind you of its uses and how we can use it for digital formative assessments. To be honest, like some kids just articulate their thoughts better on video than they do on a test or they do on any of the other digital formative assessments. And so just making sure that we remember to include those types of learners with these opportunities. It provides the social learning for all of their students. It also provides verbal demonstration of learning and understanding. They can explain their thoughts, and sometimes that helps us as teachers to really understand maybe where a connection or a disconnection is. And probably my favorite thing about Flipgrid is it really empowers student voice. It really allows students to like take over their own learning, which I think is really important, especially now, because with virtual learning, like students really do have to own their own learning environment. And so this gives them that ability. So I'm going to show you what I've done first, and then I'll give you the link. If you haven't used Flipgrid, the way it's kind of set up is you have grids. And so I have grids set up for different things that I've done. But then I also have like a grid set up for just digital assessment examples, essentially. And so what I've done within that is there are topics. And so what I tried to do is I created a topic of most different subjects as well as like a way to check in with students. And so you'll have the ability, I'm going to give you access to the whole grid. And so you can choose which one you want to respond to as a student. But I think it gives you, I would encourage you to look at more than just one once I give you the link, because it's going to show you like different ways, different grade levels, different ways to set up a topic in your Flipgrid for students to respond. And then once we all respond, we can look at what it looks like at a teacher's perspective, and then I'll show you their library as well. So here is the link, and Ash is also going to put it in the chat.
Hannah, there's also a question about what grade levels would you use formative for while we're doing that?
I would say the lowest I would probably go is 5th grade. Yeah, maybe 4th. What do you think, Ash?
I think you definitely could do it with 4th.
Yeah, so 4th to 12th.
Yeah.
If you're especially if you're doing the show your work. If you're not going to do that option, then I think it would be, you know, most grade levels. But when it's talking about that, like show your work aspect of formative, I would definitely, it's not as kid friendly, I would say, as some of the other
Right.
ones are.
I agree. It's more worksheet like.
Yeah. Bless you. So you should, with that, have access to all of the different topics.
Did you want us to respond?
You can, you don't have to, because I know how we adults are as responding to videos. It's, I really just want you to see the different ways the topics can be set up. I think that's probably most important.
Okay. All right, cool.
And see it from a student perspective.
Jessica says, for Microsoft peeps, Flipgrid links to Microsoft. Use your Teams account to log in and can be added to Teams.
Wonderful. I think Flipgrid is actually owned by Microsoft now. Isn't that
I think
correct?
it is.
Yeah.
I think I heard that too. I did a Leslie Fisher seminar on it.
Yeah. I think they bought them last year.
With the Flipgrid guy.
So now you have access to this forever with that link. And you have my presentation, which also means you have access forever. So you can come back and look at this if you have questions or thoughts or anything like that. But I also want to show you some of the different options that Flipgrid has. The Disco library is where topics are shared across the world, across the country, across, and it's where I got a lot of the ones you just saw. But there are some fun ones, as well as like a what's inspired you. These are created by Flipgrid, like people that work for Flipgrid, different companies that use Flipgrid. We've got our book talk as well. I just love how visual Flipgrid is. You also have different, like, you know, with the way the world is right now, you've got your conversations about race, equity, and justice. You've got, you know, different wildlife. You have media. You have World War II Museum. There's just so many options.
And Wonderopolis.
Yes.
It's the bomb.
But then you can also come down here and you can choose, I'm a middle school teacher, so I'm going to choose middle school. I'm going to choose my subject. Let's do language arts. And it's going to send me, it's going to show me all the ones that are available for me to look at and maybe copy to my own grid topics. It's going to be a
modify it.
Say that again, sorry.
You can modify it.
Yes. You can go in, you can save it, you can edit it, you can change different things that you don't like about it. But I mean, this could go on for like ever. Because anything that's labeled as middle school language arts is going to pop up here when you filter it. And you know how many users, I mean, there's so many users of Flipgrid. So that's something I really like. There's just so much, and it would be, I think it's an incredible resource, even if you're not using it for digital formative assessments, but just to like discuss things and talk with your students. It also has this function where you can see all the people that use Flipgrid around you and you can connect with them. So like you can zoom in and you can connect with different people, maybe in your same state, maybe in your same area, or maybe you want to connect with someone that's in like Australia. And you can just like click. You can just click, yeah, and see them and communicate with them and see if they want to do any sort of collaboration. Or you can sort specifically by your subject or your grades. And then last, I don't have any mixtapes. Never mind. Oh yeah, that's Flipgrid. Probably my favorite, one of my favorites as well, because I love the student voice aspect. But also just I think a really great one to end on, because it is, yes, it can be used for digital formative assessments and all of that, but it can also be used for so many other things. And students, I mean, they love their cameras. We know they do. They did love to take pictures and videos. And if you don't know, when they take videos, they can also like cover their face with emojis. They can add like little hats and stickers and all that fun stuff as well.
They can pixelate too.
Yes. So they don't have to, it doesn't just have to be a video of themselves. They get to kind of have that creativity opened up to them as well.
I have a question.
Yep.
Do you guys know if there are any limitations as far as student permissions? Like I think that might be more of an IT question, maybe for the county specifically, but I don't know if students have restrictions on their webcams as far as allowing Flipgrid to access the camera.
I definitely would say that. I think that has to be a county level. I know at our level, our IT is pretty strict about student permissions and all of that, and ours are allowed to use Flipgrid in their video.
Okay.
But you would definitely need to address that specifically with someone in your county.
All right, thank you.
All right, so that was Flipgrid. The data with Flipgrid, I guess I should probably just show you an example of one that I've used before.
Also, do you know if you can share straight up to Seesaw from Flipgrid?
That would be your, that's a question for you.
I feel like if you go to share, yeah. Go to share and see what happens. Google Classroom, no, but you can still do the.
You can do the link or a QR code.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at what people have already said within like a topic, this is kind of what it looks like. No, it's not. Yep, I don't remember my password, so I can't show you. But essentially, it's all the videos pop up. Why would it not let me access my own topic? There we go. Okay, so I have all my videos, and then I can click on, I don't know who would here. They'll be fine with it. They didn't actually answer any of the questions, but I'll be able to just see their video. They respond. Yep. And then you can give your feedback, you can add comments, it'll send it back to them, and they'll have access to it. You can also edit it.
Do you know anything about Flipgrid, if they have a mobile app, or how that would work as far as students being able to log in? Because I think like some of my students, especially being high schoolers, have personal email accounts.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to download the app, because I just saw at the bottom of the website that there is an app.
Yes, so all of our students
like
actually use the app. And I always set it up so that they just use the codes instead, so that they don't have to do any of that logging in. So anytime I like share something, I just share the code with them, so that there isn't any like of the logging in aspects of it.
Yeah, I think that would get rid of the issues with video permissions on the Chromebooks as well if they just used a mobile device instead.
Yep, and I would say with any of these, allow the students the option to not just use whatever device the county's given them or whatever, but also you'd be able to use like their phone or like a device that they have at their house, because some just need to juggle the two devices instead of like what we just did, or I know some of you did, was like move between tabs and move between Zoom and your Chrome or your or your Safari or whatever. Sometimes that is a lot for students, so definitely always open up the opportunity for them to use two devices. And then last, we're just going to go back to that Padlet one last time and fill out our thoughts, ideas, and applications for Flipgrid. And then, of course, built into the whole thing of this presentation has been Padlet, which can be used for so many different assessment tools, ways. So yes, with Padlet, you do only have the boards, which is why it wasn't one that I highlighted. But what I do is I have one board, like I have a couple boards that I keep all time, and then I have one board that I like reuse like every week. So that's kind of how I get around the Padlet restrictions. And so what I will do is once I have my video and recording downloaded, I will add a little section over here for recording, and I will upload the recording of this. Also, I will, if you go back to the introduction slide, there's a link to my website, which also has this presentation and will also have the recording there as well. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much. Please contact me or Ash if you have any questions. We really do appreciate you checking out this session. And I did get an email this morning that I don't think the QR code is working, so I would definitely use the link right there at the bottom, which I believe Ashley's going to put in the chat as well.
It didn't link, but hang on.
Let me see.
I'll get it.
We can see if it works, but I know I got an email that it wasn't working, so. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes and look through the chat and see if I can help. But if not, you have my email, you have my Twitter handle, you have my website. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. I know that this is a different school year for all of us, and I want to be there to help make it as easy as possible for all of us.
The Google form is working.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I had to link the form because
I don't know, I did not do this slide, so I will say that. This session was digital assessments and virtual learning, for someone that asked that.
That's what I did, Billy.
I mentioned Pear Deck, Hannah.
Yes, Pear Deck is a good one.
Actually, Leslie Fisher's doing a thing on Pear Deck this Friday at 7 p.m.
Check it out.
Yeah, she's doing all free every Friday. Well, it's 4 o'clock her time, but 7 o'clock p.m. She's doing webinars for free.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's really great how all of these tech leaders are doing lots of free stuff for us. I appreciate it. Thank you all. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard sometimes when you're going through so many things.
Yes, I agree. And sometimes you forget what you knew because you're just it just becomes so much.
I know. And then also sometimes you can't remember which thing you could do which piece with.
Yep, exactly. So
I like your template.
Thanks.
System.
Thank you, Doreen.
I'll hear about as real as you get. I don't know. Is our email and Twitter on the Padlet? Is that something you could put like in the title?
Yep, I can. I'm just actually gonna add it over here on the side. Oh my goodness, Lord. So many things. I have to log into the Padlet.
You think they're all going to be put together for everybody?
I think so. I mean,
kind of like conference style.
Yeah, but I don't know for sure, and I just want to make sure everyone does have access.
I tried to sneak through and look for the answer, but I don't know if you got to it because you just got really busy.
Mm-hmm.
Can this be uploaded to Seesaw?
Padlet?
I'm sorry, Padlet, yes.
What was the question?
I think it can be linked. I don't know if it can be uploaded.
Okay, probably. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna try it. Thank you.
Also, Hannah, can you show how to do the grid view in Padlet? I think that's what was being asked.
Yep, give me just a second. You can go to settings.
Yeah, I'll add mine while you're doing that.
Okay, perfect. And then, oh my goodness, now I have to think for a second. I just did it. Hold on.
Hang on, is there somewhere?
Okay, change format. Yeah, there you go. So you can do the wall, which just kind of does randomly, canvas, where you can like move things around, stream, which is like a Twitter feed, grid, which I'll just click on it so you can see. I'm not even sure the best way to explain that. Yeah, so it just does whatever the latest.
Okay, something just totally went away and now I can't.
Yeah.
What did you just do to me?
I changed it to grid, which really is just going to be kind of another way for it to be random. I'm going to change it back. Don't worry, Ashley.
That's fine. I was in the middle of like my email. It's all good though.
Nope, that was wrong again. Dot change format. Personally, I like the stacking columns. I'm more of a organized person. Oh no, I'm gonna have to go back and reset. Okay, hold on. Can I undo all the things?
Not let me copy from the chat. It's getting on my nerves.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go through and change all this. Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy.
No, don't hit that remake.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Why would it do it like that? I know I've changed it and changed it back before.
Change the format, won't do it?
Yeah, well, I did. Now I'm in my columns, but see how it's...
Yeah. All right, I'm about to Google that.
Yep. Well, I can drag to different... Yeah, okay.
I always hate to look at something that's ancient.
What do you mean?
Like an older post about it, because it's probably changed.
Oh, and I know. Oh my goodness.
It's just telling me the options. It's not telling me. Can you manually do it?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to do.
It says this is from 2018. So it's, no, changing formats can lead to some irreversible changes. Switching from the shelf format to the wall format and back will not retain the columns that were originally there. Post and attachments will always be retained.
So I must not have changed it from when I did it originally. I must not have changed it from. I don't know what I changed it from, if I'm gonna be honest.
Naomi, I'm glad that you had a good session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent it to her privately. Hannah.
Okay, good. Okay, I think I figured it out.
Okay, you're a genius. I knew it.
Well, I didn't know. I figured out how to do it manually easier than I was doing it. They're in order, so all the top ones are all Kahoot. I just have to know when it switches over to Google Forms.
Can I just pull my little thing all the way? Well, it's not. There's not a column yet. Okay, never mind.
Okay, see here. This is where Google Forms starts.
I don't see what you're doing. Here's dragging them.
Yeah.
That says, oh, never mind. Leslie Fisher is a Microsoft person. She's always talking about Teams and
She's Google and Microsoft though.
Yeah, I think she does a lot with
I mean, I didn't realize how many people did use Microsoft though.
Yeah.
Which is great. I just need to learn more about it. I don't like not being able to answer questions for people.
I have a Zoom question for you while we're hanging out with Padlet. So if you it seems now that the default and maybe the standard, like you can't change it, I don't know, is that you have to ask students or participants to unmute themselves. Like you can't unmute them. You can mute them, but you can't unmute them.
Yeah, you have to ask them to unmute. Yeah, I saw that.
So you can't, there's no work around that.
No, there is not. Not that I found.
Not the answer I wanted to hear.
I know. I'm sorry.
Because that's really kind of a hassle with the little ones, especially.
Okay, I think.
Glad we can still mute them though.
Yeah. I hate not being able to, for kids, I hate being not able to like unmute them though. I really.
But it's probably more of a privacy thing, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Like we can't choose when we can hear into their home.
Whoever is M. Herring, yes, that is a paid version of Zoom. Are you saying that, jump on in this conversation.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you can do that? You can unmute people?
I was noticing that like whenever I would click on something like raise hand or something, there was a lot more choices than when I'm just with my teammates. I don't have all those choices like to be able to do other things, but other than just raise hand or give a thumbs up. But I noticed that there were a lot more choices for participation when I
Now,
was.
are you, there's those reactions at the bottom, which is just the hand and the thumb, but you're talking about like when you actually go to the participants?
Yeah, like let's see where I was at that I noticed.
Because under the participants, you can do yes, no, coffee break.
Yeah, under there,
Yeah.
but I've never seen that before unless I just didn't. So
I
is that
wondered-
just because it's paid or is it because I just haven't never paid it into mine?
I feel like those things were there when we were using it free at the end of the school year. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But you might want to poke into the participants and see.
And I think a lot of it also would have to do with like your county, what your county has allowed you to have access to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Zoom, every time they update, something's changed.
I know. Oh my goodness.
It's about to make me crazy because we used to be able to mute, unmute, and mute. Thank goodness we can still mute, but unmuting, you have to ask the students to do it.
Well, I have really enjoyed you both today, so thank y'all so much.
Oh, thank
Anna's
you.
the bomb. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you so much.
My internet only quit on me twice, so you know.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's been a battle. It's been a battle. I don't know what it's probably.
You're not that far from me. I don't understand why.
I don't either, and I actually went over to Greenville to get a new modem Friday, and 9 hours later I was activated, and then the person I talked to this morning said I was activated incorrectly with the wrong CMAC address.
Oh.
So he needs to delete my whole thing tonight after 5. He's going to do it and then put it back in. It'll take him 2 hours. I'm like, okay. But every day when I've talked to him, it's been a different reason that it's not working. So I don't know. I feel like if my modem's rebooting, it's something either specifically to my house or the modem itself. And that's the second one that's doing it. So I don't know.
Oh my goodness, I think I'm almost done.
Yeah. Okay, don't ever do that again.
Yeah, never ever.
But I'm glad you could sort it back out. I'm gonna. Yeah, you got to make that last column.
The contact one again.
Yeah. Looks like I can move stuff, but I'm not going to touch a thing. I'm too scared.
Oh my goodness. Come on. I want to see the end in sight.
It is. It's coming. I love Flipgrid.
I do too.
I'll share with you the notes from that session if you want me to, because there were 2 of them. One was basic Flipgrid, and the other one was like the Flipgrid that you might not know about. And then she did one on memes and GIFs and something else. If you'd like me to share that, I will.
Yes, definitely. I stole this Padlet idea from Marcia. I need to tell her. Since she was on here, I literally took it from her.
This particular Padlet situation that you're going through right this minute?
No, in one of her ones that I watched,
yeah,
she had like a Padlet running in the background of her whole session.
Yeah, and mine's at the very beginning of the first column. I don't know how I got. I guess because I was working on it at the time you pushed the button. There we go. Honey.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. I feel so much better now.
I know. I'm sure that was tearing you up.
Oh, that was really. Ooh, that was really.
Okay, there we go. Whoops, that's not even right.
Thanks, Tech. Come on.
I know, right? Been that kind of day.
I know. Did you go to any of the other sessions?
I didn't because I was doing summer school.
Oh, yeah. How is summer school going?
Well, pretty good. I think you should probably quit recording at this point.
Oh, I'm just. There we go.